weapon they used to kill Hifumi.
The weapon?
Yeah, because I mean, according to the Monokuma file, the way Taka and Hifumi were killed was almost the same, with them having similar fractures and all.
Ja, dat had ik zo.
But Justice Hammer 3 and 4 were still laying around in the nurse's office and equipment room, right?
Yeah, that's true. Because I remember seeing it, both the hammers in the nurse and the equipment room.
So if Hifumi was killed in the repository, the culprit would have had to grab one of the hammers, kill Hifumi, then put the hammer back where they found it.
That sounds possible.
But wouldn't that be seriously risky for him?
I'm surprised. It seems there's some semblance of a brain knocking around that skull of yours after all.
Hey, maybe he's dumb, but he's not stupid.
Hell yeah, it's packed in there good and tight.
I don't really understand the insult, hero, but whatever.
He's right, though. I don't understand it either. The Monokuma file makes it clear that they were killed using similar instruments. But if the hammers were already laying around those other rooms...
So the question is, how could the culprit have gotten their hands on either of the hammers? Personally, I haven't a clue.
So which hammer was used to attack Celeste? Number 1 or number 2?
Those were accounted for in other rooms too. And I don't think either one is big enough to kill someone.
Then,
Is it not possible they used a different weapon?
I don't think it is possible. They were both killed with the same kind of thing, right?
So then, what was used to kill Hifumi?
The hammer was actually used to kill Hifumi. The word pictures the ring in his case won't become clear until we figure it out. Somehow I have to find it true.
What was used to kill Hifumi? Was it Justice Hammer 3? Maybe Justice Hammer 4?
Well, whatever it was, there's one thing we have to figure out. How was the culprit able to move around so freely with the weapon? How did nobody witness them carrying it?
sounds like a Justice Hammer 5 is about to make its appearance! Check out murdergear.com/hammertime for more info!
Well, one thing seems pretty clear. The murder weapon had to be one of the Justice Hammers! And, that's about it.
Hifumi was killed in the race posterior, right? So if the weapon they used to kill both of them were actually similar.
What was used to kill Hifumi? Was it Justice Hammer 3?
Maybe Justice. Well, if there's one, how was the culprit? How did nobody... Sounds like a Justice... Check out murdergear.com.
Well, the murder weapon
Had to be.
No, that's wrong. The murder weapon wasn't a Justice Hammer at all. No, it was something completely different.
Yep. Maybe it's the same weapon, but it's got a different just a hammer.
But, seriously? A different weapon?
Specifically, a hammer from the repository. The killer could have easily used that to kill Hifumi. Now, all the hammers in the repository were covered in flecks of grit and debris. But for some reason, one of them had been scrubbed clean.
Huh?
And the reason it had been scrubbed clean was most likely because it was used to commit murder.
And if Emma was here, she could see that she could use the luminol to see if there was tracks of blood, and she would find indeed traces of blood where someone was killed with the hammer.
If the hammer got covered in Hifumi's blood, of course they'd have to clean it off. I'd also like to point out that the repository has all kinds of hammers. Big ones, small ones, and even some flat mallet-like ones. I think whoever made the Justice hammers used those as a basis for their design.
If that's true, that would explain the Monokuma file's note about the wounds being similar.
So Hifumi moved Taka's body to the repository, where someone then used a hammer to kill him.
Exactly.
And whoever did that is the true killer. The one Hifumi was working with. And the one who betrayed him. Hold on a moment. I still think it's strange to assume someone was working together with him. The way the graduation rule works, there is no benefit to helping someone else carry out a murder. So the idea that anyone would work together like that is simply ludicrous. We talked about this, did we not?
We talked about there wouldn't be any reason for anyone to work together. And this is what we thought about this.
Based on the rules that have been laid out for us, even if more than one person is complicit in the murder, only the one who actually carried out the act can graduate and survive. Assuming the rule holds true, it is simply impossible that two people work together on this.
That is how the rule was explained to us.
But that only really applies if there's one murder, right? In this case, however, there were two murders.
Maybe say there's no chance that the people work together on this.
Assuming the rule...
No, that's wrong. Since there were two murders, it's at least plausible that more than one person was involved.
What do you mean?
If there'd only been one murder, then yes, the idea of an accomplice isn't really worth considering. Naturally, if only one person can be saved per murder, an accomplice has no risk versus reward benefit.
Risk versus reward benefit?
The payoff for working together. The reward that balances out the risk of taking part in a scheme. There's no point in being someone's accomplice if there's no benefit to you. However, if there were some potential mutual reward for the risk, then cooperation becomes possible.
You're saying that two people could act as each other's accomplices to commit two separate murders.
I think that's what the true killer told Hifumi. They would each have an accomplice for their crime. And based on the case's events, Hifumi would have been the first one to act, murdering Taka. They made him carry out the first murder so he couldn't back out of helping them later on.
So in this case, there wasn't one single person committing multiple murders. Instead, each person killed someone, creating two separate incidents.
Exactly.
And it only looked like one person because that's how the true killer designed it to look. A single suspicious individual, a similar weapon used in each crime, disappearing bodies. By creating one seamless set of circumstances, they made it look like one person was behind it all.
The mastermind picked their target and managed to convince him to go along with their plan. And then, to avoid the no accomplices rule, they simply killed their accomplice. Which, if true, means that betraying Hifumi was part of the plan from the very beginning.
That's just awful. How could anyone be so cruel?
Oh, I know exactly who he is, Hina. Don't worry about it.
You think so? I can't help but admire its cunning. Still, their choice of accomplice seems odd.
The effort made to convince us to do more than was the same, and that was the main catalyst this time. Kuro must have noticed the fact from the very beginning. She sure did. Which is why she said not to look at this as a series of coincident events, but entirely separate events. Kyoko really is amazing, although are we developing a crush on Kyoko, my dear Makoto? When you think about it, she's almost too amazing. Yeah, in a way, yeah. Like, it's almost natural how good she is at this. We can say that it's her kind of talent about all this stuff, so that makes sense.
I understand how an accomplice could be involved, but then who was the one pulling Hifumi's strings?
Oh, I have an idea about this.
That's problem numero uno right now.
To kill and manipulate Hifumi to carry out a number of actions, and in the end, murder him. In the bits up until now, the way the case has unfolded, when you consider it all, there is really one person who seems to fit in. That's right. And this one in question is this liar bitch.
Here's my answer. It was Celeste.
Ah, so I'm the suspicious individual now, am I? I really do hate this kind of joke.
It's not a joke, bitch.
A joke? I wonder.
So what you are saying, then, is that I specifically chose to work together with Hifumi.
Yes.
The idea that I would choose to spend any amount of time interacting with him, that I would go within 10 feet of that shit for brains, that lazy, worthless goddamn idiot! Pardonnez-moi.
Now you see why I hate this bitch so fucking much.
Just to be clear, there is evidence to support it.
Is that so?
It is. Throughout the investigation, there was certain behavior that was common only to the two of you. Considering what we've learned so far, it only further proves that the two of you were working together.
Is that all the Hifumi says had in common? Why the fact that they both were talking about a suspicious individual for all this time?
I got it! The behavior they had in common has to do with the suspicious individual in the suit, doesn't it? The only ones who ever actually saw Robo-Justice firsthand were Celeste and Hifumi.
Shush. The adults are talking now.
How dare you ask face?
Sorry.
Don't say sorry to him, Makoto.
As he said, only Celeste and Hifumi ever laid eyes on the costumed individual. If we accept that Hifumi was one of the culprits, we can't help but suspect what Celeste has said as well.
Are you saying everything they told us was a lie?
Well, obviously it was a lie.
After taking Hifumi to the nurse's office, we all began our search for this individual, correct? And not too long after that, do you remember what Celeste said?
It's a shadow, something moving around the top of the stairs.
we headed to the second floor specifically because of what she claimed to have seen. Next, to draw us all to the physics lab up on the third floor,
She let out a blood-curdling scream.
and when we'd all come to see what was wrong, what was it she said?
Celeste, what's wrong? Was a rather intense scream for someone like you. I saw him, the stranger costume man. He ran off as soon as I screamed. I was blocking the stairs, so he headed further down into the hallway and disappeared.
Once she'd done her job of getting us all up to the physics lab, it was time for her partner to get to work.
Huh? What was that? That coming from a distant stair. It must have been... It was Mr. Nurse's. It is better. Come on, let's go back.
It was to get us to divide into two groups. So that we would discover both bodies at the same time?
Yes.
In fact, Celeste was precisely the one who proposed that we split up.
True. She said it was split up for catch the robot costume and check on Fumi. The word that we split up into groups. The idea di hurting Wakati. That means much more interesting. Very well. Then Makoto, Ina, and you come with me to the nurse's office. I would leave the capture of this suspicious individual to talk about and Sakura.
Well, if Celeste and Hifumi were working together, all those chance events suddenly become connected. And on top of that, that piercing cry of yours early on. That was to signal Hifumi, wasn't it? It was your way of telling him, we're on the third floor, everything's going according to plan. Why else would you let out a scream that could have carried across the sea?
Yep. What to say, bitch?
I just realized another strange thing. When we found Hifumi in the nurse's office, who we now know was only pretending to be dead,
Cindy was not expecting this. Do not imagine that Hifumi would be murdered.
Celeste, you were the first one to say he'd been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to make sure we wouldn't have any doubt in our minds.
I don't believe it! Everything! The whole thing was one big act!
Yep.
Hina, you were with Celeste when Hifumi's body disappeared, right?
Yeah. I was feeling kinda sick, so Celeste took me to the bathroom. Wait! Then that was...
She wasn't worried about you. She just saw a chance to help Hifumi sneak out of the nurse's office.
Mm-hmm.
Each piece isn't much by itself, but start putting them together and the picture gets very ugly indeed. Wouldn't you agree, Celeste?
I have no idea what you mean.
Oh, you have idea what you mean, like, bitch.
Don't bother trying to deny it. You made one fatal mistake.
Oh, did I?
I didn't even catch it myself when you first said it, but looking back, I can say that that one little slip-up was your undoing.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about what you said after Hifumi's body disappeared and we returned to the nurse's office.
Maybe enjoying this. Instead of decided I was standing around, friendly and conflicted. I don't die here. I just die, just like those guys die. And she said those guys, not the one guy.
I remember her saying that too, but I don't understand what's so strange about it.
Then pay attention. Sakura, Toko, and I were first to discover Taka's body in the equipment room. Then Makoto showed up and told us Hifumi had been killed, so Sakura and I left with Makoto. Once we were in the hall, we ran into Celeste, and the four of us headed to the nurse's office. Now, the entire time we were together, none of us said anything about Taka being dead. Think about it. Celeste's comment doesn't make sense. It was completely out of place.
He's right. She said that as if she already knew that Taka was dead. So she mentioned those guys and not the one person.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Although I don't really get what it means.
You hear that, Celeste? Everyone's having some trouble understanding. Could you repeat what you said? If you're really not the culprit, you shouldn't have any problem repeating it, right?
I can say that Celeste's comment doesn't make sense. But what is it allowed into?
All I said was, they must really be enjoying this. Enjoying the sight of us standing around, frightened and confused. They must be positively elated. We are all going to die here. We are going to die, just like those guys died. And that is all I said.
And that's all it takes to finish this. It's obvious, isn't it? What was so strange about Celeste's comment?
She said that she should only ever know about the Hifumi stuff. That's right. So it's impossible she could know also about Taka's knowledge if no one ever. Keep in mind, this is strange about what she said is...
All I said was, they must really be enjoying the sight of us. We are going to die. We are going to die.
No, that's wrong. That's right. There's no reason Celeste should have said, just like those guys died. When she said that, none of us had told her Taka was dead.